Hello, and welcome back to the review of 4th edition products. Today, we're reviewing Player's Handbook 3. Now, I enjoyed the Player's Handbook 3, the classes, I should say, because this was the first edition where, psionic powers were balanced with the rest of the game, which I know kind of takes away from this, the uniqueness of psionic powers, but from a DM standpoint, I'm not going to put classes in that are so unfairly balanced. So I was really happy to see this. But let's just dive right on in. We have an introduction of new races. Some of them good, some of them absolutely worthless. I don't even know what they were thinking. First, we have the Githziri. It's the one that ends in an IA. It's I don't think my camera would actually pick it up, but that one. I guess they're the good ones. I can't remember, but intelligence and dex, very psionic oriented. They're all right. They're hold to their older lore. They still got their hatred of mind flayers and their brethren, the other versions, Githziri and Githyanki. That's right. And Githyanki they still hate. So it's got some backgrounds on the side, as we saw an introduction in the PHP 2. We started to see those come out. Those say they are. Minotaur are playable. However, they made a difference between Monster Manual Minotaur and Player Minotaur. Essentially, the Player Minotaur are more evolved and capable of thought and learning and civilized things. Whereas the Monster Manual ones are the brutes, the just mindless beasts that you see in stereotypical Minotaur. So I enjoy the idea of the Minotaur. I think it adds a little bit of flavor. I think it's, as a player, I kind of think it's a stupid idea. I mean, from a DM standpoint, I would love to make some Minotaur NPCs to do stuff, be enforcers for a lord or anything, but I honestly cannot see you actually playing a Minotaur. So I find them to be a bit more of a DM-oriented race. I think if you were to play one as a player, it'd be questionable unless the entire group was Minotaur. But strength, con, wisdom, whatever. They get to use their horns. Their background is pretty much in Minotaur. I mean, they're really nothing much to them, honestly. I'm trying to make them a little bit more interesting, but they really aren't from this. They really, harp on that labyrinth thing, but, they dropped the ability that they used to have where Minotaur were unable to get lost in labyrinths, which is pretty cool. They don't have it anymore. But, alright. Once again, I think more unique to, more unique as NPCs. Then we get to the Shard Mind. I think are kind of a stupid race. You are essentially a grouping of crystals that has psionic powers. Essentially, you're like the psionic crystal that you had as a scion from 3.5. Only now you're a full-fledged race, and you're humanoid-sized. Whoop-de-doo. They're really purely built to be psionics, and they get some cool things, but I think they are just a stupid race. Like, oh look, I'm a rock. Who gives a shit? So, their story is cool. I'll give it that. They're sentient fragments of the living gate, which once stood at the pinnacle of the intricate lattice of the astral sea, Beyond the gate lay the alien far realm. The gate's destruction during the Dawn War resulted in a rise of mind flayers. Blah 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 blah. Cool story idea. Shitty race. I don't know about you, but I don't want to play a rock. Closest thing I'll get to a rock is playing a dwarf. Love dwarf race though. But yeah, I mean, here's a picture of it. See? All you are is a rock, a crystal. So, moving on. I think this is the last one. Yeah. This is by far the stupidest race for me. The Wilden. What you are is a shrub. Yes, not even kidding. Look at all those shrubbery types. I think there's 3 types. There's the Voyage of the Ancients, which I think is that one. The Wrath of the Destroyers, which is that one. And the Pursuit of the Hunter, which I think is that one. Really, a stupid looking race. Made worse by you're a plant-like fey creature. Their bones are hard-witted, and their supple bark-like skin trails diviney tendrils and cloaks of leaves. I don't even know what they were thinking when they made this race. +2 wisdom, con, or dexterity. That is just beyond belief. Yes, that is something I forgot to mention they introduced in here, which I actually do agree with this part. They have your core ability score, which could be like wisdom, or elves is dex, dwarves con. But then they offer an alternative to the second one, which I think makes sense. Because the first one represents your innate racial tendencies, but the second one represents more of what you did. So for dwarves, you have con, but then you can have wisdom or strength. So with wisdom, you could, that would prove you're studious, you're scholarly, you're clerical, you're a man of the cloth. Whereas if you went strength, that could mean that you're probably more of a miner in your clan and things like that. So I think it's a very interesting concept. And after the release of the PHP 3, they went back through all their other stuff and introduced those other things. I think it's a wise choice. I enjoy it because it does tailor a little bit to the min-maxers in the world, but at the same time, I think of it as more of a story bonus, something that you can actually see and it changes your character. So I was a big fan of that. But then we move on. They get to the racial paragon path that we saw in the PHP 2. We get the blooded champion for the Minotaur, nature's avatar for those stupid Wilden, the Wrathmaul for the Githzeri, which I think is actually really cool, because what they are is they are the hunters of the Githzeri people. Their idea is based around hunting and killing mind flayers. I mean, it's even got this really cool image of a Githzeri having just decapitated a mind flayer and holding his tendrilled head. So I think they're really cool, really really cool. We get the Shard Disciple for the Shard Mind, and then we get into the character classes. Now I like these classes. I was a big fan of these. First, we get the Ardent for the it's a psionic leader type. So their big buffs is like the healer type. They're pretty cool. I mean, this is where you start to see them. What they did for the psionics to make them unique, though, is they gave them a psionic PowerPoint pool, and from that pool, they get to augment their at-will powers, because they take away their encounter powers and instead give them at-will powers that they can augment to make more powerful. And then their points recharge after, I think it's a short rest or something like that. So they're essentially like encounter powers, but their uniqueness to them. So I think it's really cool. The Ardents get healing stuff and press on through. They got some nice powers. The psionics, they got a cool concept running with them. The Paragon pads for them are the Argent Soul, Psionic Binder, uh, Stygian Adept, and Toleric Strategist. None of them particularly stand out to me. Just let me move on to the Battle Mind, which is a class that I really, really think is really cool. Is the Psionic Defender. They're the brutes. They're the frontline fighters for psionic warfare. And they got some really, really cool stuff. Like, I made one for a Dark Sun game. And level 1, you can bump your DR out the ass. Like, I think level 1, you can get it up to, I believe, 10. DR 10 at level 1 for like a round, I think it is. Yeah, because battle resilience, until the end of your next turn, you gain resistance to all damage equal to 3 plus your wisdom. And then I had something, so you know, that can be approximately 8 right there. And then there's another ability that you can get to bump yourself up to 2 more. So yeah, it's ridiculous. It's really cool though. They also have the augment thing. Their big thing though is just moving, and they have a lot more effects than the other classes that all the psionics do. They tend to have more mobility and more damage, not damage, but like effects like weaken and all that other stuff. So it's really cool and unique to have in a party, because this is where the psionics really, really capitalize on all the effect types that 4E introduced. The Paragon pads are the Eternal Blade, the Iron Guardian, Steel Ego, and Zephyr Blade. Let me move on into the Monk. Now, a lot of people complained about the Monk being moved into the Psionic Power grouping, but to give you to defend it, I mean, the Monk, they use their key power source, KI, not key as in key EY, but their key power source, and it was alright. It was very Asian flared, very Asian oriented, and it had that, but then later on the Ninja came about and had the same type of power idea, and I think there might have been one other class, I can't think of it right this second. So I mean, they had that, but they wanted to bring the Monk back for 4E, because, you know, before it was a cool flavored class, and so they wanted to bring it back, and they had two options. They could either A, keep it in a key power source and come up with a whole new set of classes for it, or they could just change that key into psionic energy and make their job easier. And it does make sense. I think they did a very good job executing the Monk as a martial artist. They did take out the flurry of blows in the sense that it used to be, which was disappointing. But you win some, you lose some. They got a lot of mobilities and movement techniques that allowed them to move up on the battlefield and do some flashy ass shit. But yeah, nothing of theirs truly stands out enough to give note to. Their Paragon pads are the Ghost Walker, the Initiate of the Dragon, the Mountain Devotee, and the Radiant Fist. Next up, we have the Scion, which is the controller. The Scion has some really, really cool abilities that just screw over the enemy. We're talking about, you know, they have a lot of their controller-oriented abilities are devoted to making enemies attack each other as opposed to players. So I'm a big fan of those type of powers. I think they're really cool. They got a lot of flavor orientation to them. So to see that implemented a lot for class, I was really, really happy, as opposed to the Wizard, which was just massive AoE. Their Paragon pads are the Cerulean Adept, the Dream Walker, the Time Bender, which is actually, you know, as it sounds, you know, bending time shit, and the Uncarnate. So, seeing as how we're running out of time, we will come back to we'll cover the rest of the book in part 2. So, see you when you click that video.